皆様、はじめまして。私はPaul Hockeyと申します。どうぞよろしくお願いします。Hi everyone, my name's Paul Hockey. I'm from Australia and I'm 53. 11 years ago, at the age of 42, I became, for want of a better word, the first disabled climber in the world to climb the north side of Mount Everest. I have a very strong background in traditional Japanese martial arts, and it's the study of these martial arts and their philosophies that enabled me as a one-armed man to not just climb Everest once, but twice, to also ride motorbikes and drive large buses and tour coaches. In particular, I'm very fond of the writings and the work of the famous Japanese swordsman Miyamoto Musashi and his book, The Garin no Sho, The Book of Five Rings. Today I'm here to share my philosophies and some of my story with you, and I'm looking forward to meeting you. Thank you very much. See you soon.
It's such an honour to be here in Japan. I'm Australian. I'm from the Great Barrier Reef, the very northern tip of Australia, Cairns. And you probably wouldn't guess it, but my profession, if I can say it that way, although it's probably just a job, I'm a coach driver and a tour guide. And I drive coaches, and you can imagine as a one-armed man, that's quite interesting because I go up these windy mountain roads in Cairns, sometimes in the wet season, it's raining, windy mountain road, slippery roads, and of course I work with a lot of JTB customers. Now my Japanese friends here, you know the Japan Travel Bureau, and I actually worked for the Japan Travel Bureau for 17 years as a Japanese-speaking tour guide. And speaking Japanese all day, every day, honestly, and this is no disrespect to my Japanese friends, I went a bit crazy, so I got a license to drive a coach, and I went back to guiding in English. But just recently, I had two lovely elderly Japanese ladies sitting beside me on a very rainy day going up a windy mountain road. And of course, they don't know that I can speak Japanese. So as I'm driving up this windy mountain road, I'm listening to the conversation behind me. Do you think he's got a shaved head or has he lost his hair? I don't know, but he's got a robber's beard. He looks a bit scary. Where's his arm? I'm scared. Me too. In Japan, I'm sure that this wouldn't happen. And being the kind of person I am, I probably shouldn't have said anything, but I said in Japanese, ladies, it's a shaved head. I like the goatee beard because I've probably watched too many tough guy movies, and of course they were, oh my goodness, you know. And I said, and don't worry about the driving. I've had plenty of experience driving, you're quite safe. So I'm only sharing that with you because I don't think I'm the normal sort of individual, the job that I do, etc. And the other day, I met a young boy, his name was Jack, he was 14, and I said to Jack, because he said to me, how do you drive this big coach? I thought it would be impossible with only one arm. So I thought I'd be cool, and I said, listen, Jack, impossible is just an opinion, it's not a fact. Because I'll tell you a secret, and I don't normally tell people. I've climbed the world's highest mountain, Mount Everest, twice. So it's easy to drive this coach with one arm. I said, so Jack, always remember, in this most impossible of all possible worlds, impossible is just an opinion and never a fact. And do you know what Jack said to me? He said, let's see you clap. Not bad, Jack. But let me take you back to my childhood, ladies and gentlemen. I was Captain Hook. I had a wooden arm with a metal hook. I experienced a bit of bullying. At the age of 8, I discovered the great Bruce Lee. Hands up if you know who Bruce Lee is. Okay. If you don't know who Bruce Lee is, hands up. Good. Bruce Lee, short Chinaman, one leg shorter than the other, very small, and the bullies would surround him, and he would, with this magical movement and spirit, defeat the bullies. Well, as an 8-year-old, I was a member of a little gang of kids that all had something different about them, and we gravitated towards each other. I had one arm, a wooden arm with a metal hook. I was Captain Hook. The two fattest kids in school were part of our little gang. So there was the two fattest kids, there was me. There was a little Chinese guy, Bruce Chu. He was very shy. He wouldn't talk to anybody except the two fattest kids, me, and the other guy in our gang who only had one eye. And then there was another kid with a speech impediment. He stammered a lot. And we were called the Wog Gang. Because back in those days in Australia, it wasn't like it is now. If you were different, you were called a Wog. And we were the Wog Gang. But we discovered Bruce Lee. And the little boy with a speech impediment and myself, we went to a judo lesson, Japanese judo. And the reason we went to judo was because back in those days in Australia, that's all there was, boxing or judo. Now, in my story, you'll see that fate steps in a lot. But I think if you have a never give up attitude, fate comes at you. I went to the judo class, and the judo teacher, he had 2 arms, but only 1 hand. 1 hand was missing. And this is the moment that changed my life. I studied judo, and I don't have a lot of time today to cover a lot of things, so I'm going to take you through this quickly. I wanted to learn how to kick and punch. I wanted to do the Bruce Lee stuff. I did Chinese Kung Fu. I got my red sash, which is an instructor's level. At this time, I wanted to teach martial arts. But people said, you've only got 1 arm. It's good that you're doing Kung Fu and that you've got your sash, but people don't really want to learn martial arts from a 1-armed man. I wanted more. I started studying Hapkido, which is a Korean martial art. I really loved this Korean martial art of Hapkido. I ended up with a 2nd Dan black belt. Now I had my red sash in Chinese Kung Fu, my 2nd Dan black belt in Korean Hapkido. And one day, when I was working in Sydney, Australia, in a garage, pumping gas, you remember the old garages? Used to pump the gas, check the tyres, check the oil, check the water. I was working in a garage because I couldn't get another job. Being a 1-armed man, that's what I ended up with. I was only very young at this time. I was 18. And I was showing friends of mine at this garage how to do flashy, jumping, spinning kicks, kicking a Coke tin off the top of the petrol pumps. And in drove a very famous Australian who had his own TV show, Ray Martin. And he had a lunchtime TV show every day. And that went all the way around Australia. And I was asked to do more kicks, which I did. And he said, come on my show and do that. So I went on his show. I demonstrated my martial arts. He interviewed me. Now, back in those days, there was no mobile phones. There was no computers. There was only landlines. I was sharing a house with 3 high school teachers, physical education teachers. And while I was working that weekend after the TV show, the phone didn't stop ringing all weekend. People who wanted to learn martial arts from me. So I opened up a little school. Within 3 months, it got so big, I had to get a bigger hall. Now, I had my red sash in Chinese Kung Fu, my 2nd Dan black belt in Korean Hapkido. But you know what I really wanted to do? Bruce Lee, who I never met, had introduced me indirectly to the famous Japanese swordsman Miyamoto Musashi. I read Miyamoto Musashi's story. I studied the Gorin no Sho. And I really wanted to come to Japan. And a very famous karate man in Japan by the name of Masatatsu Oyama. Hands up if you've heard of Masatatsu Oyama. I wanted to come to Japan and meet him and do Kyokushinkai karate. Do you know what everybody said to me? He won't meet you. He's a famous Japanese karate man. So I took my small life savings and I came to Japan and I went to Ikebukuro. I knocked on his door and I started doing Kyokushinkai. So I guess what I'm saying with the story so far is anybody can do anything and you have to believe in yourself. Now let me take you to my motorbike story very quickly. We don't have a lot of time. I ride motorbikes. And the reason I share this story is not to tell you to break the law or lie or cheat, but I want you to understand my mindset before I take you to the top of the world, to the summit of Mount Everest. My brother had a motorbike, a Yamaha, and he said to me when he was 19 years old, and I was only 17, there's something you can't do. This is my brother, my best friend, who always believed in me. And he said, you'll never be able to ride a motorbike. But I'd already studied martial arts from the age of 8 years of age, and I knew something. Bruce Lee taught me, no limitation as limitation, no way as way. I said to my brother, I can't ride it like you, but I can ride it. He wouldn't let me try. So I went to a friend of mine at school who had a trail bike, a bush bike, and I said to him, can I try and ride your bike? So this friend of mine, we put the throttle from the right-hand side to the left-hand side. And I practiced in the bush, and it was great. And every weekend I'd ride in the bush with my friend on his bike. He modified it for me. He had 2 bikes. Now, when I wanted to get a motorbike and ride on the street, I went to the Australian Department of Motor Transport and I walked in. And I said to them, there's my learner's permit. I want to get a learner's permit for a motorcycle. The man looked at me and he said, you can't. You're an amputee. You only have one arm. You can't get a motorbike. We cannot issue you with a learner's permit. Okay. So this is why I'm so lucky to be a one-armed man, because from a young age I learnt that a lot of people with average thinking won't believe in me. So I had to believe in myself. So I went to my brother and I said, can you get me a learner's permit and say that you are Paul Hockey, that's me? He said, no, I believe it's too dangerous. So I went to my best friend Craig, and my best friend Craig, he loved beer. I said, Craig, will you get me a learner's permit? And I knew what he'd do. He said, get me a carton of beer. I said, I'll get you 2. So I bought Craig 2 cartons of beer. He got my learner's permit. I rode around the streets of Sydney for 1 year. Didn't get pulled up by the police once. Can you believe that? Unbelievable. I went back to the motor transport department. I walked in and the man there said to me, where did you get this permit? I said, I just came in and filled it out and I got it. What's wrong with your arm? Nothing. No, the other arm. No, I don't have one. But it says here, do you suffer from a disability? And you've ticked no. And I said, because I don't suffer from a disability. Long story short, they made me do the motorcycle policeman's test, and they said if I passed, they'd issue me with a license. I passed. And do you know what I did for a job after that? I got a Suzuki Katana 1100 motorcycle, best motorbike in the world, and became a motorcycle courier around Sydney for a living. And then I got pulled up by the police almost every week. And I won't go into those stories, we don't have enough time today. Moving forward, I'll take you back here to Japan. I was typical Bakagaijin, teaching English. Many years ago in Japan, I lived here for 3 years. While I was studying karate, I was also teaching English, and of course I learned how to speak Japanese. I met a beautiful Japanese lady. We ended up getting married and having a baby, and I had to go back to Australia because my auntie was dying of cancer. So I came back to Australia, and I'm sure we've all had experiences with cancer here, indirectly or directly, and it was so sad to see my beautiful young auntie at a very young age die of cancer. I came back to Japan. Not long later, another phone call from Australia. One of my best friends, my stepfather, was dying of cancer. I came back to Australia. I was with him when he took his last breath. I was fortunate, I was blessed. And then I came back to Japan. By this time, I had 2 children. I moved back to Australia, and because I'd learnt Japanese in Japan, I became a Japanese-speaking tour guide for JTB, Japan Travel Bureau. Had another baby. I got a phone call. My father, terminal cancer. I was blessed. I was with him when he took his last breath. Now I had 3 children, a wife, a mortgage. I'd kind of lost my martial arts way. And about 18 months after I lost my dad, my mother told my brothers and sisters and I that she too had terminal cancer. And as an Australian, I did what a lot of Australian men would do. I went to my best friend's house. I got drunk and told him about my mum. And I don't know, it's so strange how life works, but when I was 9 years old, another hero of mine besides Bruce Lee was Sir Edmund Hillary. Hands up if you know who Sir Edmund Hillary is. He was the first man with Tenzing Norgay back in 1953 to climb Mount Everest. Our teacher told us the story of Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay climbing Everest. So from the age of 9, I had a passion for martial arts, but I was an armchair climber. I was fascinated by high-altitude mountaineering. And I'm sitting there with my friend drunk, telling him about Mum, and I heard myself say to him, his name's Luke. I said, you know what, Luke? I want to climb Mount Everest. I want to get a world record. I want to raise money for children's cancer research. And I want to form an expedition and do it in my mother's name. And my mother's name is Dorothy Bridge. Now, Luke wasn't a dream taker. Luke said, I've seen you hit the punching bag. I've seen you build a house. I've seen you ride motorbikes. He said, I know you can do it. So what do? Well, I got on a plane with my wife's permission and went to New Zealand and studied the art of mountaineering. And the art of mountaineering is very similar, in fact, almost the same as martial arts. You're living in the middle of now with mind, body, and spirit. I've often used the word naka-ima, but a lot of my Japanese friends aren't familiar with it and I feel weird. But naka-ima to me means the middle of now, mind, body, and spirit, in the middle of now. Good ki-ai, good sutemi, kia. Mountaineering is just like full contact martial arts. You focus mind, body, and spirit in the middle of now, relaxed and yet confident, and you have self-belief. I took to it like a duck to water. I came home, I told my family what I wanted to do. They were horrified. But I knew that we only had Mum for about 18 more months. So what I did, I asked my New Zealand climbing instructor how I can climb Mount Everest, and he said, you can't. You don't have any experience. It's impossible. I said, yeah, it was impossible to ride a motorbike, It was impossible to teach martial arts. He said, I tell you what, if you can climb Mount Aconcagua in the Southern Hemisphere, the highest mountain in the Southern Hemisphere in the Andes in South America, if you can do that, I'll let you go to Mount Everest. He said, but with your experience, I don't think you'll make it. Has anybody here seen the movie Everest? Has anybody here read the book Into Thin Air? Hands up if you've read the book Into Thin Air. Hands up if you've seen the movie Everest. There's a Sherpa climber in the movie Everest. You might remember in the movie they say, do you speak English? And the Sherpa says, better than you, Mr. America. Do you remember him? The book Into Thin Air. Do you remember Ang Dorji Sherpa? Fate stepped in again. I went to Aconcagua with Ang Dorji Sherpa, one of the best Sherpa climbers in the world. And we climbed Aconcagua together perfectly. We almost died on the way down. That was my bad. That's another story. But we didn't. And he told my New Zealand climbing teacher, he can do it. Why? It was all my martial arts background. It was all Gorin no Sho. It was all Miyamoto Musashi's teachings. It was all Bushido. And what I would say to this audience here today is simple. I see many Japanese people here. And I also see many people who are not Japanese. I'm a man of contrasts. My background is Bushido. I have a great respect and love for this country and its ancient code of Bushido. But I'm also the crazy guy that stands up and is willing to make mistakes and take risks. In Japan, you say the nail that stands up will be hammered down. Well, I'm a man of contrast because although I have great respect for the traditional Japanese martial arts, because they're what took me to the top of Mount Everest, I'm the nail that sticks up. I'm a maverick. I'm a lone wolf. And over the years, I've learnt to become the hammer. But my message to this audience would be quite simple. In my humble opinion, the traditional Japanese way is the best way. But in a world of change, in a world where the world is becoming smaller, in a world where we're all learning more about each other, we have to take risks. We have to be willing to make mistakes. We have to look for each other's strengths and weaknesses. Everybody here is capable of greatness. Everybody here is very good at something, and everybody here is probably very bad at something. But make no mistake, I'll make you a promise, and I know this to be true. There are 2 wolves and 1 master. I don't know if you've heard this, but in all of us there are 2 wolves, and there is 1 master. You are the master. And inside you there are 2 wolves. You decide which wolf you feed. Do you feed the bad wolf, negativity, pessimism, narrow-mindedness, jealousy, envy, hate? Or do you feed the good wolf, positivity, optimism, faith, hope, love and be loved, help each other, support each other? If you can come together as a team with that traditional Japanese thinking, which is the work ethic, which is the discipline and the honour, which is unbeatable, it's the best thing in the world, with that open-minded, free thinking where you're not afraid to take risks and make mistakes to get ahead, you can do anything. How do I know? Because I went to Mount Everest in 2004 and I got 500 feet from the summit. I saw 4 dead bodies. I lost 15 kilos. That was a good thing. I came home. I didn't make it. My dear mother was still with me. I didn't want to go to Mount Everest in 2004 because I was afraid I'd lose my mother while I was there. But she said to me, I know I don't have much time left, and I want to be around to see you do it. I raised $30,000 for kids' cancer research in my mother's name. I got 500 feet from the summit of Mount Everest. I came home. I got a phone call. I spent a lot of time with my mother after I came home. I had her for 3 more months. But I got a phone call, and it was one of Australia's best climbers. And do you know what he said to me? He said, I heard that you want to go back and climb Everest again. He said, but don't. Because where you turned around, there are 3 cliffs below the summit. The first step, the second step, the third step. He said it's impossible for a one-armed person to climb the second step. So the north side of Everest, first step, second step, third step, second step. He said, one of Australia's best climbers, I'm not going to tell you his name, I don't roll that way. He said, it's impossible for a one-armed climber to climb the second step. I had no money. I mortgaged my house to climb Everest the first time. The money was gone. But fate stepped in again. I was too slow in 2004. But I'm a martial artist, and I never give up. I got my backpack. It had 25 kilos of phone books in it, because I used to carry 25 kilos of phone books in the pack up a mountain road for 6 kilometres every second day. It wasn't enough, I was too slow. So I put 40 kilos in there, not 25. I trained every day, not every second day. And I didn't do 6 kilometres, I did 12. Fate stepped in. I was training on this mountain road. The mayor of Cairns, where I come from, the mayor saw me. He pulled over and he said, what are you doing? Are you going back? I said, yes, I am. He said, what do you need? I said, money. He spoke to the Cairns newspaper, the Cairns Post, and they said, if you're going back, we'll sponsor you. 2 weeks before I lost my beautiful mother, she said to me, what are you going to do with your life now? What are you going to do next? And I said, Mum, I've got 3 summit rocks. Because a friend of mine in 2004 gave me 3 summit rocks. And I said, I'm going to put one back on the summit. And I'm going to raise a lot more money for kids' cancer research, and I'm going to do it in your name. This is about 2 weeks before my mum died. And she said to me, I'll be with you this time. I knew what she meant. It was a tough moment. I went back to Everest in 2005. I saw 10 dead bodies. I lost 21 kilos. But on the 5th of June, it was a Sunday at 7:42 a.m. This is really strange. I was 42 years old. It was 7:42 a.m. and I picked up 3 little handfuls of rocks to auction off for kids' cancer research. And when I came home and counted them, there were 42. I raised over $300,000 for kids' cancer research. I became the first, for want of a better word, disabled person in the world to climb the north face of Mount Everest. After becoming a motivational speaker, I managed to rescue my house and pay back all my bills. My kids are now 24, 21, and 20. They're all doing really well. I defied the dream takers, and I know you can too. And how did I do it? I combined the traditional Japanese Bushido work ethic with open-minded, free thinking. I wasn't afraid to take risks. Now I'm about to sit down, I believe, and answer some questions. Florian, is that correct?
For sure.
But before I do, I want to ask you all a favour. And this is how I roll. My Japanese friends, my other friends from other countries, and make no mistake, I've seen Indian faces here. That's the home of all spirituality. I've studied Kundalini, chakras, the home of spirituality. I challenge all of you, sorry to do this to you, but I challenge all of you to scream out 7 words. Never give up, never ever give up. Now here's the thing. You're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm not doing that. Oh, yes you are. I have a technique for everything. Think about the person you love. Think about the person you would die for. Think about the person sitting next to you. Do it for your country. Do it for the person next to you. Do it for the person you're thinking of who you love. Because the universe is amazing. And when I watched Suzuki-san do his talk, I couldn't help but think about the orchestra I think of when I'm practicing climbing or martial arts, and that's the orchestra of life. Someone is dying right now. Someone is being born right now. The earth is spinning. Planets are orbiting. Moons are orbiting the planets. The orchestra of life, if you just listen, it's there. With all your mind, body and spirit, in the middle of now, I want to hear the 7 words, never give up, never ever give up. If you do it, the person you're thinking of who you love, I promise you, will have good luck and have good things come their way. Do it not, that's on you. That's your fault. Do it for the person next to you. Do it for your country. Don't do this. Never give up. Never ever give up. Mind, body and spirit, Nakaima, together as a team. I want to hear, never give up, never ever give up. And if you don't do it properly, I'll make you do it again, trust me. I'm old school. I'm Japanese Bushido. So on the count of 3, with all your mind, body and spirit, in the middle of now, for the people sitting next to you, for your country and for the person you love, I want to hear it. Never give up, never ever give up. 1, 2, 3.
Never give up, never ever give up.
Okay, now before I talk to Florian, we're going to put a bit of pepper on that. What you just did was 2004, 500 feet from the summit. What we're going to do now is 2005, we're going to summit. We can do a lot better than that. That was pretty good. I want better. Okay? We're spirits having a human experience. Make it work. Do it for the person next to you. On the count of 3, never give up, never ever give up. 1, 2, 3.
Never give up, never ever give up.
That little difference there, that makes all the difference. Thank you.